Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey. And we're talking politics today with my co-host and a board member of the Cerritos College Board of Trustees, Zurich Lewis. So, welcome.
Glad to be here as always.
I'm glad. So, right before our show, we run a lot of things, and man, we got 10 different topics going.
Incredible, yeah.
I know. So we want to focus a little bit here. You know what though? Let's start with their Congressman Garcia.
Sure, your congressman, not mine.
Oh yeah, yes,
I got Linda
yes.
Sanchez.
So
yeah,
that's right. She's got a sliver of Downey, which I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I mean,
just a tiny little portion.
Like a couple
yeah,
blocks on there. Yeah. So she cusses a lot.
On and off the field.
I know. So, Congressman Garcia, Robert Garcia, former mayor of Long Beach, represents Long Beach and all the way here to Downey. So he's been in the news a lot. He's been throwing a lot of flames and a lot of things at President Trump and the Republicans and so forth. And Elon Musk, and on CNN last week, the reporter asked him, because he actually was real proud and he put in a tweet. And I guess I could say that. Maybe that's not a bad thing. I would say it's our podcast. We could say that word.
Sure.
I'm going to use a four-letter word, okay? Not the other four-letter, the really bad one. But he said Elon Musk is a dick, okay? And the CNN host went up to him and in the interview says, "Do you regret calling Elon Musk a dick?" And he goes, "Well, no, because he is a dick." And it's like, come on, man. You're an elected congressman. That's a little immature.
But that gets the headlines. That gets the clicks,
yeah.
and it gets the attention on someone who sees themselves as a rising star in the Democratic Party, especially when there's such a vacuum at the top leadership level. So, I think that's how he gets attention, and that's how you do it.
And it was contrary to what he told the residents, because I attended a brief coffee with him and several Downey residents on when he was running. He goes, "Oh, listen, I'm not going to be the ones throwing things. I'm not going to be out for news and whatever. I want to go back there and get things done." So he's doing exactly the opposite of what he said he was going to do. So anyway, but something else in that interview that he said, he says, we need to bring, what the American public wants is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. This is an actual fight for democracy. So, sounds a little threatening.
That actual, when you say actual and make it physical and say, hey, actual weapons, what does that mean, Congressman?
Yeah. So he says that. So thank you for sending me a copy of this. We have a letter from the Department of Justice, the United States Attorney Edward Martin, dated February 17th, so it's recent, to Representative Garcia. And basically, it's a couple of paragraphs. He's received requests for information and clarification on things that you said. He takes these requests seriously and act on them with letters from this that you're receiving. At this time, I respectfully request that you clarify your comments from February 12th, so this letter was written 5 days after those comments, on a live interview with CNN when you asked Democrats can stop Musk, and you spoke clearly. What the American public wants is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. This is an actual fight for democracy. That sounds like a threat to Mr. Musk, an appointed representative of President Donald Trump, who you just called a dick. And government staff who work for him, their concerns have been led me to this inquiry. We take threats against public officials very seriously. I look forward to your cooperation with my letter inquiry. Thank you for assisting, blah, blah, blah. Please respond by February 24th. So that's interesting.
And I don't think he will respond.
I don't think so either.
No.
I don't think so either. But this is on U.S. Department of Justice letterhead and making the point. And it's almost like Congressman Garcia was a little childish, and he kind of like, listen, you can't say stupid things threatening people. And he was the one that always was putting down President Trump that cost the January 6th and the whole thing. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are what is legally termed incendiary comments.
Yeah.
Okay. And that, can incite people who otherwise wouldn't understand the nuance of political speak and that constantly gets more and more vitriolic, right? It gets very, very violent, you know, because it starts escalating. You're like, you know, let's have a civil discussion. You're affecting this. Because again, we always have to go back to what the left and socialism and Marxism really is. It's a religion. It's actual religion believing that their God is the government, and that the government is the only one that can be their savior for all of their problems. So when you put it in terms like that, when you have the worldview that government is your savior and you need to fight for it, everything and anything is on the table, and that's what we have to continue to fight against. That's not the truth.
They're hypocrites. They're hypocritical on there. You have the biggest hypocrite, Maxine Waters, right? So Maxine Waters was spewing stuff the other day too about how terrible everything is right now and stuff. But she was the one. There was that famous video of her saying, you know, in the first Trump administration, go out there and get into their elected officials' faces. You know, oh my goodness.
Who's
the governor of Arkansas?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yes, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, go disrupt her and get in her face, get in their face, and people did do that.
They actually
went to
did.
Restaurants and so Maxine, you're inciting a riot, and then you were the biggest instigator against the January 6th, which I'm not sticking up for. But hypocrites, they're just hypocritical, and they're acting childish now, and it's just, there's a lot of things moving really fast.
And that's a beautiful thing to see from the administration, is that there's so many rights that need there's so many wrongs that need to be righted.
Right.
And, you know, with the confirmations of people who are, you know, as Chuck Schumer calls it, taking in a meat cleaver to, you know, the waste, I think that's exactly what we need. Because if you take a scalpel and say, well, you know, here's a few $1 million here, here's a few $1 million there, and what do you know? We're still gaining, you know, trillions of dollars in deficits and debt each and every year. So, you know that's what we need to do.
Some of the things, I think it's almost, they should be a little bit more surgical on the approach on there, you know, because they pull back. But, and people that, you know, nobody elected Elon Musk, you know, and he's got confidential information. He's got the highest clearance rate of anybody. He's got, you know, he owns companies that have satellites in space. If he was going to be a bad guy, he could literally tap into his own satellites. But here's a guy that gives Starlinks. He's doing all this for free. And, you know, he's thinking outside the box and stuff. And him and the president seem to have a good relation. There could be more opposites. But, you know, I don't know. I like it. I wish a little bit more surgical on the things.
Well,
but we don't know that. We don't know what's really what the stories are.
Yeah. Well, no, and there's so much that has yet to be uncovered. I mean, you know, this is something that, you know, again, USAID was the big story last week, and all the number of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars being sent all around the world, different countries, even, you know, here that have absolutely nothing to do with the American interest. So, you know, I think that, you know, with taking a scalpel to these kinds of things, it would take far too long within a 4-year presidency, and that's why President Trump is moving quickly on everything. I mean, especially
there's some innocent people that are getting hurt on the way on certain jobs and everything else, but hopefully that'll change. But you know, when when you look at this in the mainstream media, they don't know what to make out of it, and they're deceiving the American folks. Let me give you a couple of examples. You know, we saw some of the actual press conferences. We listened to the words, and my wife and I literally listened and saw it. And then later on, when you see the nightly news on Channel 7, Channel 4, Lester Holt and David, what's his face on there, the way they start off with, it's like, that's what you got out of that press conference? I mean, it's got nothing to do with reality, you know? So it's kind of interesting. But folks, watch the real things. Right now, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we got to watch the whole thing. So anyways, okay, so that was fun to start with. Speaking of Democrats on Democrats, so we're in Southern California here, right? We have the terrible fires, and we have our local leaders here. Just to put it in perspective, obviously the city of Los Angeles is Mayor Karen Bass. The poor lady's I'm being, you know, thinking she's
very generous.
Very generous. She's taken a lot
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, you know, self-inflicted wounds. She deserves it, but okay. And then, so then we have the county. So you have Supervisor Catherine Barger that represents most of the people in the Easton fires up in Altadena and so forth. And then you have Lindsey Horvath that represents the Pacific Palisades and so forth. There's a story in the LA Times today about text revealed tension with mayor, okay? And it's between Lindsey Horvath and Mayor Bass, right? And it was like, again, more childish stuff. It's like, well, you wanted us to have a presser and to call less of them, and then you don't show up, and your staff, you need to communicate, yada, yada, yada. It does mention in here, it's kind of interesting, Lindsey Horvath was, a council person in a very small city, West Hollywood, and she got elected to one of the most powerful positions in the country, you could argue, against somebody, Bob Hertzberg, which, also a Dem, but he's a mature individual that knows how to govern. So she's thrown into this thing. And anyways, what are your thoughts on that? I know we just started talking about it, but the texts are pretty childish. And, she's sarcastic to Mayor Bass. And I guess yesterday in the press conference, like, oh, we're moving on.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
It's clear. I mean, you always have to take a step back and look at the perspective of not just what's in the story and the content of it, but why that story is appearing there in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay. Because somebody leaked it.
Yeah.
And somebody leaked it with an intention to make something happen. And in
the
this
LA
case,
Times went out
in the LA Times, they
got
have
a Freedom of Information Act to request
and it's clearly not being leaked by Karen Bass herself because it harms her image. So it's further tensions, I would imagine, between Supervisor Horvath and Karen Bass that ultimately Karen Bass has already stated in a interview with Alex Michelson the other day that she is going to run for re-election anyway, despite all this, and things can change in a heartbeat, but. There's so much question and there's so much issue with the leadership that she already had. I mean, if you look at the timeline that was there between how much notice she had, because it's not like she was in Ghana and all of a sudden, oh wait, there's a fire going on. I had no idea. Let's go running back. Okay, there were plenty of warnings from the National Weather Service. There were plenty of warnings from staff. The fire department didn't have any pre-positioning, knowing that this was an issue. So it was a failure of government on so many levels, and the god of that Marxist religion will fail you. Every single time. Yeah,
absence of leadership will do that to you.
Yeah.
And then she came in, and then, of course, the fire chief, which is unheard of for the L.A. city fire chief on there to quote, like, we didn't have the resources we needed.
Yeah.
And, again, most politicians, their number one priority is public safety. And we went through that here in the city of Downey. But when you have your fire chief saying we didn't have the resources and people died and you have 10,000 houses burned down, wow. So
that have an estimate of 3 to 5 years to rebuild, and to have a press conference saying, "Hey, well, look, we brought 12 agencies from the city of LA to all in the same room so you can get your permits expedited." Why does there need to be 12 agencies for you to rebuild on your own house?
Thank you for bringing that up. You're right. Why is that? I mean, again, shouldn't there be a one-stop? Not the same gym is not the one-stop. It should be one-stop agency. Yeah. And they're having issues, these poor homeowners, on top of losing everything that's near and dear to them, except their lives, God willing. They lost their homes. But then now the governor's even trying to help them because the Coastal Commission in the city of Malibu are saying you can't build your house that you had.
Right.
And they're saying, and by the way, I know your house didn't have a pool, but now you want to build it and you want to put a pool in. No, you have to rebuild exactly the way it was. Really? It's like, I want to build it better. Okay. I want to
take the opportunity.
Rebuild it and build it better. But that's an issue right now. It really is.
Didn't Joe Biden say build back better?
Build back better. I know. But you can't tell that to the city of Malibu or the Coastal Commission or the city of LA. So these poor people, they're getting pushed around. And then, people are trying to buy the lots. I'll tell you, I don't know what I do. And my wife and I even talked about it. These people had nice lives. In Altadena, we drove up there around after church the other day. It's all open down there. And just some of the businesses on lake that are still there, the Hat. But right next door to it, 20 feet away, it's all burned down. Across the street is burned down. So you look at these things, and it's like it's gone. The neighborhood's gone. And these poor people their lives will never be the same. And I don't know, at my age, do I want to go through a 5-year process of rebuilding and then not knowing, you know what I'm saying? Is
right,
somebody's
and the stress
gonna,
that goes along with it.
The stress that goes with it. Forget the financial aspect of it, but you're building, and hopefully everybody builds so you have a neighborhood back. You have some of the same families. But you and I know that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so that's an issue. People are going to look at. They're finally fed up.
Yeah,
you know?
and there's no leadership other than Rick Caruso that's put people together. That if he were mayor, the 12 agencies would have been 3.
Yeah, there was a story on the front page of the LA Times the other day about that family. It's been since the Woolsey fire. It's been 4 or 5 years, and they can't get the permits that they need, and they put trailers on their property in Malibu. And anyways, okay, so that's some of the stuff and the good tension that's going on within LA. It's just kind of interesting to see. So something else that I want to bring up, and I don't know why I'm quoting the LA Times on stuff, because you got to look at things, and some of the stuff I just don't believe. And then the quoting, like there was one the other day, Jeff Prang, our county assessor. And he put something on Facebook, and he blasted, the Republicans want to get rid of Medicare, the whole thing. And that was the title of the thing, of the story. But when you look at it, and you're talking about, it had a quote there from Darrell Issa saying, we don't want to do that, but the people that are fraudulently involved in there, we do want to see what's there. And so, but everybody else forgets that. He had a nice long little quote and paragraph in there.
Yeah.
So people are spinning things their own way, so be careful. But I saw that. I was going to comment it on his story for Jeff Prang. I'm like, let it go. I know him.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's a left-wing liberal that just throw things on there. Him and Robert Garcia are the same on there from that perspective. I'm not even saying they're unethical. I'm just saying that they're both immature and childish when it comes to things like that. So, and that'll get back to them, and he'll confront me, and I'm good. I'm a big boy.
That's right.
Anyways, the caucus. The GOP just created its own Latino caucus, okay? For years, the Dems in Sacramento have had a Latino caucus, which now represents a lot of California. And there's 28 legislators up there that are Assembly or Senate that have a Latino caucus for Dems. They wouldn't let the Republicans in, okay? Mind you that, you know, they're not all the same, but, you know, you should help work together to promote Latino issues, just like you have a LGBTQ caucus, you have a women's caucus, you have whatever caucuses, right? So finally the Republican says, the heck with you guys, we're going to form our own, and it's 9? They created their own. And that was just kind of interesting. I'm kind of glad that they're moving forward saying, hey, you won't let us play in your sandbox. We're going to get our own sandbox, and we're going to help our own people. So what are your thoughts?
Right. I mean, you know, from the prior article, you know, they always were able to, tenuously were able to use the term vendidos, that Republicans were sellouts to their own race, and you're not really, you know, Latino. And it's the same argument that's used for pretty much any, you know, demographics. Like, well, you're not a real this, you're not a real that because you hold center right of view.
You know, I came from Cuba, so when I left, so that means a worm. So I was called the worm for leaving Cuba behind and leaving, you know, Castro behind. So I'm a worm. But anyway,
exactly. And so, you know, and of course they have their prerogative to say who it can and can't be within the caucus, but it's a farce to say that the California Latino caucus can only be represented by those left of center, right? Because especially now that Imperial County and many other, you know, Latin areas have swung.
Assemblyman Gonzalez.
Not just the people who were elected, but the actual numbers that, you know, voted for Donald Trump.
So many in the state.
And even in our own area, how much, you know, it swung between 2016 to 2024. You have, you know, 20, 30, 40-point swings, you know, between Bell Gardens, Cudahy, Downey, Norwalk.
Kamala Harris got 51% of the vote in California. 51%, where the registration is 2-1. That's incredibly low. She only got 51%
51
of the vote.
Okay. I thought it was higher, but okay, yeah.
So no, it was
Sure.
it was in the story.
No kidding.
I'm cheating. Overall, 51% of voters voted for Kamala Harris.
No kidding.
But an estimated 54% of Latino men voted for the Republican nominee. So the Latino men aren't with you, okay?
Yeah.
So, that's a crazy number that hit me too.
51.
You know,
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
And we have
fun.
44 legislators up there that are Latino.
Yeah.
So-
So, it's good that they finally said, all right, if Lena Gonzalez was going to go on, and she did,
Yeah.
on an interview as the chair and say, yeah, no, I'm not changing my mind. I'm not changing my mind. Like, okay, fine. Then we'll start our own and make it different. So, the difference with this, it's not a Republican caucus. They explicitly state that anyone of any ideology
Right.
is welcome in their caucus.
Right,
So,
right.
I would hope that some of those members that are in the Democratic version of it would also join along and say, hey, look, you want to be a problem solver?
Yeah.
Let's, get this done for, one of the largest state with Latinos.
Yeah.
So,
They used to they had a caucus, a few of them, the Get Things Done caucus, which it's great. It just, unfortunately, you have such control by one party. It puts their thumb down on any original idea if they didn't come up with it, or at least working together and stuff.
Exactly.
So, all right, we're talking about Sacramento. So let's talk about how silly and how bad they are for local municipalities, okay? So I can say your dad's the mayor of La
Of
Mirada,
course, yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And Zurich is been with Cerritos College on the board of trustees for over 10 years, okay? La Mirada is another good, well-run city. I know most of the elected officials there, so I have a lot of respect for La Mirada.
Thank you.
So La Mirada has to do the same thing Downey does when it comes to this. Folks, in their wisdom, the state legislators, they passed 9 bills in the last 2 years, but over the last 5 years, they continue to pass their will onto local municipalities. And what I'm talking about, ADUs, okay? Those are dwellings or little, used to call them granny suites in the backyard. The additional to add additional dwelling on your unit, on your property, if you will, which sounds okay, but they're dictating zoning laws to the local municipalities. And the example that I'm going to give you is, last night was my very first meeting as the chairman of the Downey Planning Commission. okay?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I really enjoy it, going from an elected official to an appointed official.
Yeah.
And we all work well, and we have a great staff. But last night we had to pass the ordinances approving all the changes that Sacramento has given us. The city of Downey, and through the wisdom of the staff that's got direction from the council, pushed back as much as we could, okay? And not trying to implement things that legally they could not. But what's happening, folks, Sacramento is putting their will onto every city. Like every city has to be considered the same, okay? Which we're not the same. I'm sorry. I love La Mirada, but it's not the same as
not the
Downey and
same.
vice versa.
Nope.
It's not the same as other cities, Cerritos and Lakewood. But we all have to comply with the same laws, which means that if somebody comes up and wants to build on their backyard, regardless of what the neighbors think, regardless if there's no parking on that street, regardless of the will of the people or the city or with the zoning laws, guess what? You have to do it. You have to allow that. One thing that last night that blew me away, let's say you did an unpermitted house or dwelling in the backyard for 800 square feet, unpermitted before 2020. And we built this house. And now the city can't go back and tell you, no, it's not, you got to bring it up to code or so forth. The only thing was safety. But they don't have to make it re-permitted. So there's so many things, and you can build a house up to 800 square feet, up to 1,000 square feet and 20 feet. It's basically saying, cities, you're going to live by our rules, okay?
Yeah.
And you're going to build this, even though of your people, you can have an election and not have anybody in the whole city vote for it. We went from, in 2018, the city of Downey had 2. We now have 151. 151. So when I asked the question, has parking been an issue? Has residents complained? And our poor staff look at each other and they said, yeah,
of course. Yeah.
Of course. And there's a lot in the process to build more. I get it, that people may want to, and there's legitimate reasons, and I understand that. In my culture, it was okay to have, God bless them, my two abuelitas when they were alive. They've been gone for a while because I'm an old guy. But it was okay. We brought them with us from Cuba, and one of them lived with us. That was okay. That was different cultures and races that out there. So I get it. I would have loved to have had one for my grandmother or my mom in the backyard, but I didn't. And anyways, this is the will of Sacramento putting their thumb on this residents. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's been clear for SB 9, SB 10, and everything that's followed since then. Yeah. So, this isn't new. Yeah. And, the overarching goal is, we need more housing, but instead of, creating new developments in the vast lands that we have that, aren't national parks or monuments, the goal is, hey, why don't we just make it more dense, and why don't we make it more like China? Or why don't we make it more like, the European cities that have people stacked on top of each other and have, significant issues. So, it's one thing to call it, urbanism, and there's a way to go about that. Yeah. But, that's not the character of the communities that we have. And if you want to build that, go build that, in certain pockets of the areas instead of just, taking every single suburban area and say, hey, your neighbor can start building all these kinds of things without any additional parking requirements. That changes the character of the community.
Absolutely.
So it's not really an argument between NIMBYism and YIMBYism, right? So it's not an issue that says, we don't want more housing, we don't want this, and that's fine and well. But we want more mixed use developments. We do want a walkable city, but there are places that you can do that, and there's places that you can't without significantly taking out the entire neighborhood and making it
and that's what
it is. So
that's what happened. You got Senator Scott Wiener out of San Francisco. His goal is to make every city like San Francisco go up. Well, I don't want to be San Francisco. That's okay. You live there and you like that, and some people may like that. Yeah. But I don't want that. So I used to, in the old days, when somebody asked me, and a lot of citizens still do, I hang out in my corner and have a cigar a couple of times a week, and people come by and they complain, especially about this one now, because this is now impacting the residents in their houses and so forth. And I used to tell them, contact your council person. Here's the number, to contact them. And now I stopped doing that. So, and I'm going to
because they would contact them.
They would. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this now. But I now tell them to contact your assemblywoman for Downey is Blanca Pacheco. She happens to be in this building. It's easy to look her up, send her an email or call her staff, or Senator Bob Archuleta, which, I get along great with. Yeah. But these are the people that voted. These are people that voted for these things. If you look at the voting record, it's almost like group step to vote on this. And these were like, local government officials in the city, and now they get to Sacramento, and I'm not blaming Blanca and Bob all together on this, but they did vote for it, and they voted for every single one over the last 9 of them. There's been 9 bills related. Last night we got a report on each one. So look it up. Look at the Planning Commission agenda that's got all that, and you can tell you what they
both
were.
of them were council members of their respective cities too,
so
and mayors of respective cities too.
They're not, they're not the
they're not the enemy.
They're not the enemy, and they're not unethical. They're not, I'm not saying anything bad about them as human beings. But this was dumb for them to keep voting for. They need to stand down for us.
We have our strong disagreements.
I'm now Robert Garcia. I just called them dumb. It was a dumb vote, not your dumb people. Okay, so I want to clarify that. So, anyways, speaking of that, some of the gas prices that's been in the news lately, how our gas prices have risen 53% here in California. It's the highest in the nation. And right now we're at 486, and the national average is at 316. I looked one up on there in Mississippi, which I don't want to live in Mississippi, but Mississippi is $2.60, and ours is $4.85. But some of that has to do with the refineries and what California is doing,
Right.
and so forth. A lot of regulations on there on top of that.
No,
And,
it's
you know, the
artificial.
summer
I mean,
months.
that's
So, yeah.
it's the obvious result of the overregulation of the state with the intended purpose of making everything electrical, which
Right.
you know is great for some people,
Right.
you know, especially if you have a small commute and you don't really do too much. But
Right.
you know, there's many other people that need to rely on the gas to get you to different places. If you want to drive up to the desert, if you want to drive
Yeah.
up to Vegas, Bakersfield,
Yeah.
anywhere else. So you can't always rely on electric. So we
I
need to
don't-
have choices. We don't need to have.
But we're paying
single-
for it. We're
yeah.
paying 53% higher, okay,
Yeah.
in the state of California for that situation. You know, what's interesting is, I've always had power anxiety. At my age, I don't have anything against Tesla. We were trying to bring him in here to the city, and I worked with Elon Musk for a year and a half, and with his team, trying to bring him and them to Downey. So I'm not a hypocrite. I think they're well-made cars, and the company and so forth. I just don't want one. I
Yeah.
have power anxiety, and I don't want to worry about charging it. I know that I can get gas everywhere else, but the state of California, I can get gasoline at a gas station. But the state of California is pushing that. What is it, the year that we have to get rid of?
2035.
2035. So in 10 years, you're not going to be able to buy a regular car here in the state of California. And I'll be really old by then. But you know what? I will never buy an electric car. I'll go to Arizona or Texas, buy a car, and drive it back here. You can't tell people what they have to do. And obviously, the one thing that we just saw these examples, God bless them, those folks that had in North Carolina that had the flooding and their hurricanes and tornadoes that we saw throughout the Midwest. What do you do then when your power's out for a month?
Yeah.
So if we were here this way in California, you got the Palisades and Altadena without electricity. You
Where
got
you
people
gonna
that
go?
can't go back to their houses right now.
Yeah.
How are they going to charge everything? I mean,
Yeah, you have to wait in the super long lines at the supercharged stations, or find
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
willing place to
Yeah.
just let you sit there for a couple hours.
Yeah,
or
so-
more. Yeah.
Anyways, okay, we've been negative enough. Okay.
Yes.
I don't have anything good right now, except you want to talk about really fast about the cabinet members of President Trump's administration.
Yeah.
The thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's been nothing but, well, I shouldn't say smooth sailing, but every one of Trump's cabinet members has been confirmed. The closest was to Hegseth with a requiring J.D.
President,
Vance's
yeah.
tiebreaker.
Right.
Just today, Kash Patel was confirmed with 51 votes. So, and Mitch McConnell at the same time also announced his retirement.
Right.
And his handpicked successor, who was going to and did run for governor, is now running for the U.S. Senate, Daniel Cameron, who used to be the Attorney General
Right.
over there. And he seems to be the front runner, and we'll see how it goes. But I think, Trump's administration has been very much a series of wins. And, some people say, you're going to get tired of winning. That's what he always said. And so, some people consider it wins. I think mostly overall it's been good. But, there's especially immigration has really hit our area,
Right.
The most. And so,
Right.
Being a member of the board of trustees at the community college level, there's really, not much that you can do one way or the other.
I'm going to bring up about your resolution. I want to do a special 5-minute show right after this, just on your resolution.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because I think it's real important on there. He did some pretty creative things, and I think that's great. And we're as Republicans, we're branded. We want to deport everybody, and
Yeah, and that's not true.
It's just not. It's just not on there. I want to deport every single violent criminal on there that is. I don't care. Actually, I'd rather deport every violent criminal, whether they're a resident citizen or
Sure.
not.
We're making
there,
a deal
but-
with El Salvador for their mega prison over there.
Yeah,
to
but we
send-
definitely want to, and I'm going on record. If you hurt somebody, if you got a felonies on there, you're a violent criminal and you were here illegal, I want to send you away, okay? I don't understand how anybody could have a problem with that. If you're a violent criminal, okay, please mark my words. If you're a violent criminal and you came here illegally, you should be deported. Period. End of story. Now, again, we have empathy for the DACA folks. I don't want to deport Abuelita, but you know what? There's deport the first 500,000 that are violent criminals, and don't worry about the other 11 million for a while, right? Because, anyways, so that's going to be political right there, and I'm going to get in trouble for that. I don't care. Again, you got to stand on your principles. I want violent criminals out of here. And that's the other part, is some cities, they're being questioned right now in sanctuary cities.
Right. And Pam Bondi already sent out a letter, at least certainly to New York, that their federal funding will be pulled if they continue their sanctuary city status. So, it's a very strong signal that, I think, Kathy Hochul, who's the governor of New York, has a lot on her plate for a number of different reasons. But
Mayor Adams.
And Mayor Adams, that she wants to remove the duly elected mayor of New York.
That whole thing does concern me. We'll see. I'm kind of glad that a judge is asking questions on that and so forth. But that goes back to it, folks. We need to support housing of illegals for the time being. I mean, you can't just have them on the street for the moment. Yeah. But they should not be in a luxury hotel in New York City and spending $83 million, which is what was happening there in New York.
Far more than any U.S. citizen
you
here.
And I don't get to stay at those luxury. Well, we got to pay for them on there, but wow. I mean, there's a lot of, Hilton Gardens, that are perfectly fine.
Just because they crossed the border and CBP 1 allowed them to do so.
So I still don't understand the sanctuary city status of city of Los Angeles. You have in your jails, LA County, you have in your jails a violent criminal. 3 felonies, attack, hurt somebody or killed somebody, God forbid, or whatever. You have them in your jail, pick up the phone and call the federal government to have that person deported. But no, we do the opposite. Oh, no, you can't come into our jail. You have a hardened criminal. And by the way, so now, on some technicality, they're now released and they get to go back in the neighborhood.
And that happens way too often. And then recidivism.
It does
out there. It happens again.
Yeah. So then the people come to get that person. And guess what? Next door, you have people that are here illegally, and they're just living their lives, God forbid, and God willing, and they get rounded up with the bad guy. So, anyways, all right. I had too much Cuban coffee because I've been awake all morning, and so forth. So, anything else you want to end our show with today? We've covered everything.
No, we've covered quite a bit, and I think every week is something brand new from the state or the national level, and so we'll see you again.
There's
in
a lot
weeks.
more coming. We'll talk about what's going on in Ukraine. Our favorite politician, Secretary of State
Rubio.
On there, Rubio. There's all kinds of things on there. So this show, we're making it about politics. This is Zurich and I are both political folks, and we like talking about politics. Yes, we are. I consider myself right center. What do you call yourself?
Center right,
Center right, absolutely.
Yeah. Somewhere in between, like Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio is what I would say.
I agree. I wish I was as smart as Marco Rubio and even Mitt Romney on there. I've always been so impressed with, when Marco Rubio, I've met him, 15 times. I worked on his campaign. Yeah. And when you do, and he gets these tough questions, and you're like, how's he going to answer that? And you know what? He's wicked smart. He's got a good feel for it. And so that's the perfect position for him. But anyways, we do consider ourselves, center right center. But, we really would like to listen to what your thoughts are. Please text me or email me. 562-706-4114. 562-706-4114 is my cell number. My email, mario@guerrains.com. We welcome your thoughts and your comments. And if we're out of balance on certain things, if you're Robert Garcia and you want to yell at me, for calling you childish on there, I'm good with that.
That's his constituent.
I'm your constituent.
Right
there you go.
Yeah.
I'll never be able to ask for, Supreme Court tickets ever again. It's supposed to go to your congressman on there. Anyways, I'll be back in D.C. in a couple of weeks. So, I'm not sure I'm going to drop into his office, but I'm there available. I mean, you got to be able to work together and do things on there, but don't bring any weapons. I promise you I won't be bringing any weapons.
No actual weapons.
No actual weapons.
Yes.
That's the other thing. What's an actual weapon?
Yeah.
Is it a mystery weapon? Or so forth. Anyway, now I'm talking
these weapons,
to
right?
Yeah, I know, huh? So,
Thanks.
all right. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching and listening on there. This show is Talking Politics. Our Goodwill show is Talking Downey. And two different things altogether, but this one is the politics. Nothing is off limits here. Thank you for coming in today. I know that you came in. You had court today, or
big papers to write. So
big
and
papers.
Court tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
yeah. There you go. There you go. So
yeah.
he comes in from La Mirada, and we're filming this in Downey. But anyway, so folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Talking Politics with Mario and Zurich.